Here we go. There it is. So our first presenter is going to be Michael Hoag. He is a business relations specialist for Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, or known as OOD to many. When I came into the field, I was like, what is OOD? And then Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, because we are the world of acronyms. But Michael will celebrate 4 years with OOD in May. In his role, he identifies job opportunities that match job seeker skill sets and experience, and also provides services and resources to businesses that promote an inclusive and diverse work environment. Prior to joining OOD, Michael spent 21 years in the nonprofit sector, focused on community-based economic and workforce development with a nationally recognized manufacturing advocacy organization in Cleveland. He led several initiatives to support employer-led workforce development programs, including the launch of a manufacturing apprenticeship consortium, and was a lead partner in Work Advance, a sectoral-focused advancement program designed to find and fill in-demand jobs, serving workers and employers alike, funded through the Social Innovation Fund and led locally by Towards Employment. On a more personal level, Michael has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Gannon University and holds a graduate certificate in urban economic development from Cleveland State University. And he has lived in the Old Brooklyn neighborhood of Cleveland for 22 years and has 2 boys aged 22 and 17. He's an avid Cleveland sports fan and enjoys cycling and walking his dog, Theo. So we will welcome Michael in a bit. And let's also welcome Christopher Carpenter. He's our strategic analysis manager for the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities. In this role, Chris oversees Cuyahoga DD's workforce development team and their region-wide business engagement initiative. Chris also assists the board in analyzing, developing, and implementing various incentive initiatives, performance and operational measurement functions, and is the program administrator for the board's state vocational rehabilitation contract. He is a part of Cuyahoga DD's Management Advisory Council, a policy and strategy advisor to the Employment Collaborative of Cuyahoga County, and a board member for the Ohio chapter of the Association of People Supporting Employment First. He has previous experience in supervising job placement services, supported employment services, job coaching, summer work programs, and adult day services. Chris holds a Master's of Science in Education from the University of Akron, a Master's of Education and Rehabilitation Counseling from Kent State University, and is a certified employment support professional. In his free time, Chris enjoys cooking and going to parks and playgrounds with his wife, Anne, and his 2-year-old son, Ulysses. Welcome, Chris. So now we will kick off and welcome Mike Hoag as he gives his information.
Great. Well, thank you, Melissa, and good morning. And thanks to you and to Nancy for inviting me to join you for what is an inaugural Lunch and Learn event. When you said avid Cleveland sports fan, that applied until last night when Cavs went down, and now I'm just an agonizing Cleveland sports fan. But anyways, I serve for those that I have not met yet, I'm based and serve the Northeast region of the state for OOD, which comprises 7 counties and 2 major metropolitan areas. So Cleveland and Akron are in my territory. OD has worked really hard to become a true educational partner for Ohio employers to support them in creating and building disability inclusive workplaces. So I'm really excited to highlight some of those resources that we've built and offer to these employers. I'll touch on some of the resources and then offer a quick tutorial on how and where to find these resources on our website for future reference. Next slide. More broadly speaking, we offer an entire suite of services to support employers in their efforts to create work environments inclusive of people with disabilities. We're really honored and excited for the governor's budget proposal, which actually makes a historic investment in Ohioans with disabilities that will allow OOD to maximize federal resources allocated to Ohio by providing a full state match by the second year of the biennium and enable us to serve more than 41,000 Ohioans with disabilities annually. So that's a 6,000 increase of individuals that we will be able to serve a year with OOD services. So this investment, it also expands our employer partners options for assistance, which currently we have over 700 employer partners across the state. So we'll be able to help them in recruiting new employees and strengthening their efforts at diversity and inclusion in the workplace. So let me touch on some of the resources that we do have available. Next slide. So our employer partner list, jobs list, has been a critical resource for showcasing job opportunities and has undergone some significant major revisions. The link takes you to our most current report, which we update every 2 weeks. It's now actually a searchable database of typical jobs with a complete list of our employer partners. So it's pretty complete, but it's not a completely exhaustive list of every job available with every employer partner. That would just be unwieldy for us. So what we've tried to do is really focus on job titles that we most commonly see aligned with our participant job goals. But it's a very searchable tool. You can search it by region, you can search it by job category. So it really provides a great resource, and I'll show you where to find that on our website. Next slide. So we do also offer services to help employers retain an employee who may acquire a disability and want to remain on the job. Employees who may be interested in receiving services from our agency to help them stay on the job, they can easily apply at oodworks.com. Our services for incumbent workers, just like everybody else, are at no cost to the employee and also no cost to the employer. Next slide. We also offer, we know that one of the greatest barriers to individuals with disabilities in getting employment is not the disability itself, but rather it's other people's perception of or misperception about the disability. So to help employers address this and remove the barrier to employment, OOD offers a variety of disability awareness and sensitivity training options. We do both in-person and virtual training sessions, and they're available to help businesses gain a better understanding and raise their comfort level in hiring, working alongside, and supervising employees with disabilities. OOD also developed numerous online resources for employers to assist them in building and fostering an inclusive workplace, including an interactive employer toolkit, live and on-demand webinars on disability inclusion and the ADA, and other resources like fact sheets and demonstration videos. And again, I'll show you where those can be found on our website in a minute. Next slide. To help employers quickly find the resources they're looking for, we've recently added this new feature to our website called the Accessibility Alphabet, which provides a list of common terms related to reasonable accommodations, disability inclusion, workplace accessibility. So when an employer selects a term, a brief definition's provided, and a lot of links to where more information on that topic can be found on the OOD website. Next slide. So this toolkit is an accompaniment to a 2022 Employers Reasonable Accommodation Handbook webinar series that we did. And it's really designed to help employers find resources and tools to include in their reasonable accommodation system and support employers in navigating this interactive process. These webinars and learners guides can equip employers with the knowledge to identify ways to create an effective reasonable accommodation statement, generate ideas for reasonable accommodation solutions, utilize external resources to support the process, and implement and fund reasonable accommodations efficiently. Next. This toolkit is really our effort at the most comprehensive guide to helping employers with recruitment, hiring, retaining employees with disabilities, and implementing a lot of best practices that foster an inclusive workplace. So the toolkit includes 4 main topic areas. 1, the inclusive workplace. 2, recruiting, hiring, and supporting employees. 3, workplace accommodations. And 4, workplace accessibility. The toolkit features an easy navigation box on each page so you can easily find the sections that are of most interest to you. So let me touch on each of these sections briefly. Next slide. So building the business case. We all know that one of the foundational principles of this toolkit is sharing information about the benefits for businesses who hire people with disabilities. I know we can all cite studies and know that having a more inclusive workplace boosts morale, increases productivity, and can increase productivity for an employer. So we really try to highlight those aspects in this section of the toolkit. Next. The inclusive workplace. This section really looks at offering tangible guidance on how employers can support a workplace that is inclusive of people with disabilities. So you can see on the screen some of the topics that are touched on in this section of the Inclusive Employer Toolkit. Next. Recruiting, hiring, and supporting employees. We all know recruitment efforts that are inclusive of people with disabilities really give employers access to the greatest pool of talent, skills, and innovative thinking that they can possibly imagine. So this section offers a variety of resources to support efforts to recruit people with disabilities and information about supports employees with disabilities may need in the workplace. You can also help find helpful guides to support communication efforts and help support communication efforts with people who have disabilities. Next. Workplace accommodations. This section's full of information to help provide effective workplace accommodations. We always like to remind employers that more than half of all reasonable accommodations cost absolutely nothing. Other times, the accommodation can be very inexpensive, with one-time accommodation costs often no more than $500. So this section includes links to find webinars on navigating the reasonable accommodation process, an ADA handbook, and helpful tools and fact sheets about Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Next. Last, workplace accessibility. This section's really rich in content. It offers a lot of ideas and resources for creating access to the digital environment, the built environment, and communications. It helps you understand what the accessibility guidelines are and shares resources for how to access and improve both the physical and digital environments. Next, so that's kind of a quick rundown of the areas of the website. You can see my contact information. I believe it's also, again, going to be at the end of the presentation, and these slides will be available. So if you need my contact information, you'll have access to it there. But let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'd like to walk you through some of these areas of our website. So I briefly mentioned we've got a pretty robust YouTube channel. that has tons of resources available under different categories. So a lot of the webinar content that we've done, other materials that have been published by our agency are all available on our OOD YouTube channel. Put a link to that YouTube channel in the chat so you have access to that. But then on our website itself, we've got a whole section of the website. If you look along the top banner, there's a whole section on information for employers. And that's where a lot of the resources that I pointed out can be found on our website. So a lot of these have tool clicks right along the top here. So I mentioned the webinars. We have a whole section here that you can click on that will provide you access to all of our webinar content. You can look them past webinars up by topic area. One thing I do want to point out with is our next webinar, which will be coming up on May 18th, is going to be on retaining a qualified workforce. It's part of a series that we're doing, and this one is focused on aging into a disability. So if you want to make a note of that, these are all, you can watch them live when they're done, or they are all recorded and then put onto our website and YouTube channel for future reference. All of these webinars also include phenomenal resource guides or learner's guides that have tons of links to additional resources that you can go to related to that webinar topic. So if you don't have time to sit through the webinar, I always recommend to our employers, check out the learner's guide, because it is a great resource tool for you to go to exactly the information that you may be looking for available on our website. I did want to point out the Inclusive Employer Toolkit that I mentioned the different sections of. That is also available on our website. Each of those topic areas that I highlighted, you can click on any of those and it will pull up a lot of resources tied to that topic of the website, including if we've got webinars that were tied to that section of the toolkit, you can access those as well from that Inclusive Employer Toolkit section of the website. A lot of additional resources in the employer resource section. You can see it's a pretty comprehensive, there's over 3 pages of links. And in that section is where you would find the link to our employer partner jobs list. And again, I won't go into that, but it is a very searchable tool for you to use in looking for job opportunities with employers that OOD has established partnerships with all across the state of Ohio. The last thing I wanted to showcase is that I had mentioned in my presentation is the accessibility alphabet. As I said, this is the most recent addition that we've added to our website. A real comprehensive way for an employer to look up a particular topic. You can expand in any of these. You click on any of the letters of the alphabet, it'll give you some of the more common accessibility terms that are found. If you click on expand all options, you can see under each of those, we show links to any resource that we have on our website that is tied to that particular topic. So if you do want to search based on a topic area that you're interested in, it should be able to be located on our accessibility alphabet. And it's a great new resource that employers are really finding advantageous to utilize in finding resources on our website. So I did want to just showcase some of where those resources can be found on our website. Again, the link to that employer page on our website is also located in the chat. So feel free to bookmark that. It's a great ongoing resource that you can utilize at your disposal. So with that, hopeful that these are going to be helpful resources for you and employers that you're building relationships with in the community. So let me stop sharing my screen, and I am going to turn it over to Chris Carpenter.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Michael. That was really helpful. I've used some of those resources before myself and shared them with my team. I love some of the employer toolkit webinars. I've shared those with new staff, so those are really great. The presentation that I have for everybody, good afternoon. I'm Chris Carpenter. I am the Strategic Analysis Manager for Community and Workforce Development at the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities. I am a middle-aged white male, unfortunately, with brown hair and a brown beard. I have a gray suit on with a pink tie, and I am behind a picture in one of our conference rooms of the Fountain of Eternal Life in Cleveland, Ohio. So I hope I have some useful information for providers or professionals in the area of employment services. And there's a lot of them out there. I haven't been able to coalesce all of the information possible to access in the internet, but this is certainly some of the resources that I share with my staff, and information that I've shared with families and individuals before on where they can find specific topics around employment and disability and employment specifically. So next slide, please, Melissa. So the first one, probably the most important one to at least start with, is ada.gov, which is a federal website. It houses pretty much any piece of information you could imagine around the Americans with Disabilities Act and its amendments, and offers direct access to the laws themselves, to the statutes and the code, and then also offers access to making claims if needed. So that's a pretty unique feature, and does have some guidance on where actually to direct the claim if you have specific issues around the ADA, either related to employment or the other titles. Different federal agencies deal with and handle those complaints depending on the title of the law. So it's a nice resource just to kind of organize and navigate through ADA related information. I would start there. And just to let everybody know, most of the slides that I've included in the presentation have both the link on the bottom for either the main page or in some cases specific pages that I wanted to help you navigate to. And off to the right is also a QR code that you could look right now with your phone and access that website if you wanted to. And so that will obviously be helpful for some particular websites that may be embedded within other websites. Unfortunately, that's kind of part of my presentation. So Melissa, if you can go to the next slide. And like I said, so the text of the ADA is there, and that sometimes can be not what you're needing, but if you are one of those policy gurus, or you're a supervisor or manager, or you want to share that information with an employer, maybe this would be where you can access the correct information, and certainly get some additional special featured topics, as I've highlighted right up there. Next slide. So similar to that, part of the federal support for the ADA, they have the U.S. Department of Labor's Career One Stop page. This is one of the more job seeker focused pages. You have the opportunity here to actually access jobs that have been posted to the website. So these are, Nancy, I'm assuming jobs that are coming through the OMJ office in some way, or are connected to the One Stop. So this can be searched and filtered by most recent to specific industries or occupational classifications. That's going to be something else you'll see in some other websites maybe as well, or sort of probably related to some of the jobs that OOD highlights in their in-demand jobs or something like that. So there's also information around career exploration on this website. You can access some additional categorical classifications of industries and specific jobs around those industries, and you can see what they're actually requiring. There's also trainings for job seekers in here, and you can access some webinars and some other documents that will help job seekers. And they do have a page specific for job seekers with disabilities. Next slide. So in there, they also have a really useful tool, the 4011 on disability disclosure. This is a handbook actually designed for people supporting a job seeker with a disability in how they can, thank you. So how they can deal with their situation around disclosure and kind of the considerations related to if they should disclose or if they want to disclose or what they should do when they decide they want to disclose. So the PDF can be accessed via that bottom section of this slide. It's that little link. It's not the easiest thing in the world to find, but if you click that link, you will be able to access that actual PDF document. The QR code takes you to the page that link sits on. So next slide. So related to the U.S. Department of Labor is the Office of Disability Employment Policy, which is shorthand ODEP. The organization should be something you're very familiar with if you're an employment professional or have been in the field for more than probably a day. You've certainly heard of some of the things that they offer and or provide and support. Their mission is to develop and influence policies and practices that increase the number and quality of employment opportunities for people with disabilities. They offer a ton of resources on this website related to disability employment. One of the big things they have been the spearhead of for a long time is the National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or NDEAM, and all of the resources that come formally out of NDEAM, as it is a theme every year and it changes. So you can access posters and other additional resources and information on their website directly. They also have some research and evaluation highlighted on here. One of the things I should mention probably in moving forward with this presentation is there's going to be a number of websites I highlight where information overlaps. There's multiple websites that will direct you either back to ada.gov or will direct you to other places with research, maybe highlight the same research. There's a lot of federal overlap in some of these organizations and the information that's coming from these places or housed at some of these websites. So the research and evaluation section here, you may also see some of those articles and those statistical analyses on other pages. Next slide, please. The other thing that the U.S. Department of Labor's ODEP office does is sponsor what we call TA centers or policy centers. And I'm not going to highlight all of these, but I do want to highlight a couple that I think are really useful and related to topics we've already kind of covered today and or topics that you may come across in the future. So next slide. The first one is the Employer Assistance Resource Network that I wanted to highlight, EARN for short. This is specifically focused on employers and giving them information, much like Michael's presentation and OOD's kind of housing of information that will be helpful to employers. EARN's the federal version of that, trying to help the employers understand how to kind of follow ADA policies, how to find candidates, what are the practices that are identified in the federally funded research and literature, and what employers can do to build more inclusive workplaces, and then also ton of information around the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility movement that's happening and the goals and outcomes that businesses that are trying to build inclusive cultures can adopt. Really like their website. I've used it for probably a couple of years now with some of my staff. And the kind of learning center is really the one place to definitely get started if you just want to go sometime and check out the website. Particularly if you're looking at doing business engagement, recognizing this area of the work and how the information here can kind of inform your business engagement strategy. Next slide. So the LEAD Center is really everything WIOA, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act stuff. It has some information around workforce development and employment strategies and certainly financial empowerment, which relates to benefits and that. But I think one of the things highlighted here that I would hope providers recognize and can benefit from is the customized employment and discovery tools that are in there. They have tools and excuse me. They have tools and manuals in there that would help a provider want to build a customized employment strategy or process, or understand more about how to implement that service or support that work through an already identified service that they're receiving from one of the funders in our state. So I think the lead center just wraps everything nicely around WIOA stuff and policy, and kind of informs from a workforce development side of things the way we can support job seekers with disabilities. Next slide. And then one of perhaps the most important ones that are that is one of the 6 sponsored through ODEP is the Job Accommodation Network, or JAN for short. People, sometimes when you refer to JAN, people think it's a person. It's actually not. It's a website that is the best resource by far for dealing with accommodations. If you have questions or concerns, this is based out of I think West Virginia, the University of West Virginia, and has been for a long time, even predating, I think, the ADA. But it started with a couple people sitting in an office trying to navigate questions around accommodations from, I believe, the Rehabilitation Act requirements. And then as the ADA became a reality, then it really took on a more important role of helping employers and job seekers and service professionals navigate complex situations around accommodations, accessing more information around what are potential accommodations. This is a website and a service that you can contact directly. And I have on multiple occasions when needed, from very easy specific accommodations to really more complex situations where I wasn't sure what was the route to go. And they will either answer the phone directly or they will call you back, and it's pretty quick. I'm always impressed with the responsiveness with Jan and the people that support it. I can't imagine it's that many people. So I can't emphasize enough that if you have a question around accommodations and you're not sure what to do, this is a resource you can tell HR professionals that they can use on their own. You as a service professional can call or contact Jan, and job seekers with disabilities can reach out to Jan directly as well. So if you have a question about accommodations, talk to Jan. All right, next slide. Related to job searching, the ONET, or the Occupational Information Network, is a federally supported resource for job information and employment information. It's really a great tool for career exploration and job analysis. It houses about 900 occupations categorically identified through industry. And then you can cluster those occupations by interest, by specificities around the occupation. It's not the most user-friendly tool for job seekers with disabilities, but it is a starting place of information on job searching and occupational information. And so I wanted to highlight ONET because what I also think is really great that ONET will link you to, and is sort of very similar to ONET, next slide, is My Next Move, which is a much more user-friendly portal for job information and industry information. You can search by specific jobs, again, just like on ONET. You can search by industries. It will allow you to kind of navigate based on where you're at in your job search process or your employment consideration process. It also has an interest profiler that's connected via ONET that you can complete, which asks you to answer some questions and then spits out a RIASEC code, which are those sort of categorical style personality test codes that tell you what you think you'd be interested in. And it may be helpful, it may not, but it's one tool that someone engaged in career counseling or career exploration or discovery could incorporate into the broader service that they're offering with that and get some additional information. Next slide. I think I have a highlighting of what one of the pages looks like. So if I was looking at fast food or counter work service, I could get into that specific job. Up to the top left, they have a video that highlights quickly what the job is and what it entails. Then nicely, they kind of bullet the knowledge, skills, and abilities that would be traditionally necessary or important in providing that type of work. And then they have personality kind of traits that are inherent to that job, the technology that may or may not be used, what's traditionally the education level or certification requirements needed. They also have the job outlook, which gives you kind of a perspective of, is this a job of the future, a job of the past, or what? And then a little bit about salary and information on average. So I just think this is a really nice sort of one pager for job seekers if they were navigating a couple different job areas or occupational interests to kind of compare and juxtapose to one another. And also just much more user-friendly and visually, I think, better to navigate, but very similar to the ONET portal. Next slide. All right, so now I'd like to kind of shift a little bit on the federal website level to really the starting point of a lot of funding that goes down to different universities that also have their own websites. But it all starts at this is one of the main administrations under the Health and Human Services Department at the federal level. So the Administration for Community Living, or ACL for short, is a federal agency focused specifically on disability and aging and supports a lot of sub administrations or centers that specifically focus on aspects of disability or aging. They support research and funding, and they support technical assistance. And some of the resources I'm going to highlight in a few slides are all coming via the funding that gets directed from the ACL. Next slide. Oh, actually, back up one slide. Sorry, Melissa. Sorry. So this specific page I've linked to is the employment resources for service providers and educators. And there's a number of topics that are listed in this page that would be immediately helpful if you're obviously a service provider or an educator in the field. But there's also a ton of other information on the ACL's website. You can, and I would suggest, if you aren't already, get on the newsletter for the ACL, and they will send out periodically the just updates, the latest news in the field, and also opportunities for webinars that they put on or they support via some of their funding. And that's a nice, easy way to not have to hunt down what's the latest webinar on a hot topic in disability and employment. You kind of get it presented to you right away in an email. Next slide. So in that particular page that I highlighted, there's one tool that I thought would be potentially helpful for those in the transition age world. So this is the tool from NTAC, the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, and their competitive integrated employment toolkit. So just one of those immediate resources you could click at, get some best practice, some information around what is the technical assistance coming from ACL around transition, and specifically transition services aimed at supporting movement into competitive integrated employment. Next slide. All right, so as I mentioned, some of the funding they provide goes to what they call TAs, or technical assistance centers. And there's more than just this one, but I thought I would at least highlight one. And they all do something a little different or unique within their space. But the one that I have traditionally utilized the most and benefited from and actually regularly like and try to get on their webinars when they're available is the DTAC Center, or the Disability Empowerment Technical Assistance Center. Some of you may already be connected or have been connected in the past. They have worked with provider agencies in Ohio before and maybe still are. But they offer, like I said, podcasts, webinars, technical publications that can all help not only providers, but also local organizations like county boards. They can help even state organizations. This TA stuff comes from the highest policy levels at the federal agencies that are focused on disability. And it's not directly their words, but certainly funded under their support. So check out DTAC's website when you can. You can sign up for their newsletter too. You may hear that again from me. Next slide. One of the other, so part of the real way that the Administration for Community Living has an immediate and effective role in what happens in our field is through what they call the NIDLR funding funds, or the NIDLR grants that get funded through the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research. And they also fund what they call UCEDs, which are University Centers on Excellence for Developmental Disabilities. And these are centers at various universities around the country. There's 67, 68 or something like that of them around the country. There's at least one in every state or territory, and Ohio has a few. And all of them focus on specific aspects of disability research that they want to kind of spend their time engaging on, but they pretty much provide some type of the same thing. They do research, they then from that research gain information about what's happening in that particular content area or construct, and then they present publications and disseminate information on that, and they offer resources around those tools and those findings. So the first one that I really wanted to highlight that I use with my team and that I've really benefited from over the last few years is the University of New Hampshire's Institute on Disability. And it's going to sound confusing here, but you've got administrations that fund other administrations that then fund centers that then fund multiple or create multiple centers. Don't worry about the details of that. The Institute on Disability at the University of New Hampshire has several centers that are under their guidance and their university auspice. So the first one that I want to highlight, I'm going to highlight a few, is the Center for Research on Disability. If you can hit next slide, Melissa. So this is a great resource if you're a data geek. If you like information around disability statistics, if you like to see trends and patterns on a chart related to disability and various community employment topics, this is the place for you. They do a number of things that are really helpful for people to kind of digest the information and make sense of it, but I'll highlight two of them that I think are really the most helpful. Next slide. The first one is what they call NTIDE, the National Trends on Disability Employment, National Trends in Disability Employment. This is a monthly webinar, and sometimes bi-monthly, or they split the month with an additional like special webinar that is an update on the employment to population ratio and the labor force participation for the disability population in the United States, coming from the researchers at the University of New Hampshire. And then they also have a special topic, a guest speaker usually at the end of the presentation. So you get a little bit of the update of the status of disability employment, and then you get a little bit of a kind of professional development side of things. And the topics are usually pretty engaging. It sometimes can be specific for providers and focused on provider resources that providers could utilize. It could be topics around technology. It could be other presenters from or other professionals from universities or USEDs. So you can sign up for this webinar for the year, and you can then just get the link on your calendar, and then you click on it. It's a lunch and learn just like this, goes from noon to 1, and it's a really kind of quick update on data and disability. Next slide. They also release, kind of in conjunction with NTIDE stuff, the Annual Disability Statistics Compendium. That 2023 annual report will provide you about 10 or 12 main bullet points on disability and employment. And I think it's just a nice kind of look over the years from what they pulled data together with. They use the ACL, they use the American Community Survey for that data point. The NTIDE actually shows the current population survey data, which is what generates our unemployment rate that we hear about in the news. So there's different places you can find sort of competing understandings based on statistics and data of what's happening with disability and employment. But if this is your world and you like this is where to go. If you're not a data person, maybe just you don't need these particular websites or resources, but they're there for you if you want them. Next slide. So another USED that's really useful and has been over the last few years from my team and our agency as a whole is the Institute for Community Inclusion, or ICI, out of the University of Massachusetts, Boston. They offer, just like the New Hampshire USED, publications and reports. They also offer a ton of purchasable web-based employment service professional trainings. So some of them are very reasonably priced. Sometimes they offer free versions or discounts. This is a kind of major tool that really houses not only data, but houses trainings and sort of online learning options. Next slide. Some of their publications that they have, I think, are really helpful if you're looking at talking about informed choice. If you're a case manager, if you're someone helping a person navigate through informed choice in employment, they have information around that. The one to the left actually is sort of a more global kind of argument for why employment for people with disabilities is an economic benefit. It actually runs hypothetical or statistical models of how it affects positively GDP for a state. I think they did models through Arizona, really interesting research article or report. And then, like I said, some stuff around informed choice and helping people navigate what employment means for them in the process of person-centered planning. Next slide. I'm recognizing time, so I'm going to move fast here. These are, again, additional publications. Next slide, I'm going to highlight the one off to the right, the state data report for the sake of time. That's a report that is published every year, kind of looking back 2 years at data across all states by different disability organizations, VR organizations, IDD, state organizations, SSA information. You can access the report as of the most recent one. I think it's 2019's, which actually looks at, I think, 2017's data. But you can also go into their website at statedata.info, and you can actually build your own charts based on different topics you want to select. So you have filterable features by different state organization data sets, which is really cool. And then different kind of focal points around those particular data points that those state agencies collect or track or are tracked on. Next slide. They also, like I said, offer trainings for professionals. They call it the College of Employment Services. It's the provider training stuff. You can see a job development bundle, benefits planning bundles, job coaching bundles. It's all in there if you want to figure out what you could purchase for your team or yourself or your organization. Next slide. And then they also, maybe more for Michael and I, they offer Explore VR, which is a specific center focused on business engagement services and how to kind of do best practice business engagement, understand business engagement aspects, and offers a nice kind of single resource for collecting business engagement related information. I haven't found any other center, you said, that has something this comprehensive and in depth. So next slide. There's also Virginia Commonwealth University. They are a USED and also specifically an RRTC, a Rehabilitation Research Training Center. They are one of the long-standing RRTCs, and there's a ton of information in here and a ton of specific centers under their RRTC that have focuses on unique aspects of disability and employment. I'm going to click through these quickly. Next slide. The DRRP, the Disability and Rehabilitation Research Project on Customized Employment. If you want more information around customized employment, webinars, publications, resources all around customized employment here. Dr. Inge is the head of, I think, this project and has done some really good webinars and publications on this topic. Next slide. The RRTC-IDD, or on employment for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Again, a lot of research, a lot of publications, some webinars, tons of resources on this particular web page. Next slide. And then lastly, transition. They also have one on transition age youth with disabilities. So they can, you can access many of these web episodes from the main website for VCU's RRTC, or if you want to get specific topics, you can go through the resources tab right there, and they'll have the archived web episodes that are specific for those areas and those centers' focuses. Next slide. The National Rehabilitation Information Center, if you want to look at all research that's kind of related to disability and employment and rehabilitation over the last 30 years, this is the place to go. You can sign up for their newsletter, and they do updates when new research comes out in different publications, particularly the Journal of Vocational Rehabilitation. This started as like a physical place that they collected research with paper, and in the 90s it transitioned to a really internet-based database and portal to get access to all the research that's going on around disability and rehabilitation and employment. So next slide. I'm almost done. The Association of People Supporting Employment First, APSE. If you don't know about it, if you're not already connected to APSE or the state chapter, please reach out to me or one of the APSE state board members. We are always looking for new membership and additional support. The APSE National Conference is coming to Ohio in the summer, Columbus, Ohio. So the website is a great place to understand a bit more about APSE and their policies and their advocacy work. There's also great opportunities for professional development here. This is where you access information around getting your CESP certification. So APSE website, definitely someplace to go. You can, again, sign up for the newsletter, and then you can get kind of policy and national news updates from them. Next slide. If you're not on Disability Scoop, I hope most people are loosely connected, if not already signed up for their newsletter. Disability Scoop is a website that collects all the various news publications around disability that may have gone out amongst any of the publications in the country, and brings them together. So there's like one place you can find all of those articles, and we'll send out a newsletter or an update every so often with the kind of latest 4 or 5 articles that they've pulled in. You have to pay to get full access, but I think you can still access up to like 3 or 4 articles a month without having to pay anything. So there is a free version. It may be even worth it to get the paid version. But this is oftentimes covering topics around employment and disability, and I think has been a really great tool for me to stay informed about what's happening nationally related to disability and employment. Next slide. Lastly, our Cuyahoga DD online resource guide. This is where we house our jobs that we cultivate with our business engagement efforts. We also highlight places in the community that are inclusive and accessible, and we highlight events that would be opportunities for people with disabilities and their families to participate in. So it's on our website. You can click our website and find our online resource guide right there. Next slide. That is it. 3 minutes left. Whew. Any questions for Michael or myself that you haven't already put into the QA or chat?
All right, looks like we don't have any. We do want to thank everybody for joining us. I am going to leave the slide up here after I keep on clicking here for Michael and Chris Carpenter's contact information. This will also come out in an email to all participants for the Lunch and Learn, which will, also include a survey link to let us know what you thought of it, and also the full presentation as well. Because I know there was a lot of information, a lot of great information that I have bookmarked on my web browser as well, and I have utilized, and it is all very helpful for individuals that are new to the field, who have been in the field for many years. It all is very helpful. And also, in conclusion, we are going to have a link right here for our next Lunch and Learn, which will be on Thursday, June the 22nd, again from 12 to 1. You can use that QR code, scan it with your cell phone, and you can register today. But again, we will be sending out this information. It will be featuring job search and placement tips for job seekers with visual impairments. Our presenter will be Wendy Zorman from the Cleveland Site Center, and we'll also have another guest speaker as well with that presentation. So I think it'll be great. That'll be a great presentation. So definitely sign up today. If you have any more questions, definitely let us know. It looks like there's some information up in the chat. Nancy, is there anything that we need to address?
No, there's nothing in the Q&A, and it looks like just lots of thank yous and great information submissions in the chat. So I think we accomplished our goal today.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great day. Looks like the sun shines out there. You are getting out and about. Remember to put those sheets over your plants and flowers so they don't get frosty, because this is Northeast Ohio. And definitely reach out to us, and also let us know if you guys have any other ideas as well. We do appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you again here in June.
Thank you.